Now on the first day of the week, Mary Magdalene went early to the tomb while it was still dark, and she saw that the stone had already been taken away. So she ran and came to Simon Peter and the other disciple whom Jesus loved, and she said to them, "They've taken away the Lord, and we don't know where they've laid him." So Simon Peter and the other disciple went forth, and they were running to the tomb. And the other disciple ran ahead faster than Peter and came to the tomb first. And stooping and looking in, he saw the linen wrappings lying there, but he himself did not go in. And so Simon Peter also came, following him, and he entered the tomb, and he looked, and he saw the linen wrappings lying there, but also the headcloth that was wrapped around the head of Jesus, rolled up in a place by itself. The other disciple, who came to the tomb first, he also entered, and he saw, and he believed. For as yet they did not understand from the Scriptures that he must rise again from the dead. So the disciples went away again to their own home. But Mary Magdalene was standing outside of the tomb weeping. And as she wept, she stooped and looked into the tomb, and she saw two angels dressed in white, one at the head and one at the feet of where the body of Jesus had been lying. And they said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping?" She said, "Because they've taken away the Lord, and I don't know where they've laid him." When she'd said this, she turned and saw Jesus standing right there. But she didn't know it was Jesus. And he said to her, "Woman, why are you weeping? Who are you seeking?" Supposing him to be the gardener, she went over to him and said, "Sir, if you have carried him away, tell me where you have laid him, and I will take him away." And Jesus said, "Mary." Mary turned and cried in Hebrew, "Rabboni," which means my teacher. Jesus said, Stop clinging to me, because I have not yet ascended to the Father. But go and tell my brethren that I ascend to my Father and to your Father, my God and your God." Mary Magdalene came announcing to the disciples, "I have seen the Lord," and that he had said these things to her. As we've sat with that passage, John chapter 20, the first 18 verses, the resurrection account from John, and we prayed about that as we sat underneath that passage and listened, something that actually we began to notice was there's a lot of noise in this passage. There's a lot of hurry. There's a lot of running back and forth. There's a lot of frantic, missing, obvious people or things. A lot of busyness. Moving back and forth. A lot of noise. Grief, but noise. When I think about this text and its context, I can't help but think that it's similar to my own. Maybe yours too. This week, I came in the building just for a moment. And I came in, and I got the keys off the hook and went through some doors and stuff. Had to grab something, and it was in a hurry, and did it again, and put all the things, and I made sure I put the keys on the hook, put the computer in here, the code on there, the alarm system for the code, and then I walked out. Closed the door, and it's beep, beep, beep. Great, done. Get to the car, and I've got a set of keys in my hand. But they're not the keys I wanted. They're the inside keys. But the key to get me back into this alarmed place and my car keys were hanging conveniently inside the building. Then I was at the dentist's office. Same day. Right, Ruth? She's my next door neighbor, and I had to call her. I was in a hurry again. And I jumped out of the car and did this one motion where I could lock the door. It was pretty efficient. Locked the door with one holding the handle so it doesn't lock. And I did it, and I jumped out, slammed the door, and I got to... I was 5 minutes late to the dentist, and all of a sudden I went, oh no. Same day. And my cell phone's dying. And I'm like, oh no. So I called my wife, and she didn't pick up the phone. And I called Ruth, and I said, Ruth, knock on the door, because I think she's there. And so anyways, that actually truly happened. And when I called my wife and finally got a hold of my wife, this is what she said to me. The first lines out of her mouth, is the car running? Because this year, I have locked myself out of the car twice while it was running. Airhead? Maybe. Busy? Noisy? Yes. Totally. And I don't even know if I should be up here speaking about this, because sometimes I feel like I'm a chicken with my head cut off. You ever seen that before? I grew up in Iowa. Sorry, it may not be the most greatest thing, but I've seen that before. Running around. You're like, what are you doing? I don't even know. Just running around, right? You kind of feel like that maybe, right? The pace, whether it's soccer games or baseball games or whatever else, right? Or work is pretty demanding, or this is pretty demanding, right? But busyness, and noise begins to press in. And that's the context that we heard in this passage, and I think I live in. And I think we all do, really. But of all the this resurrection account, there are two things that stand out to me as I get near this text. Two of them. And one of them is, this is personal. It's personal. It's the personal resurrection story. Personal, though. The story has personal implications. Individuals have to come to grips with things. And the second is that actually it's universal in its implications as well. It's personal, but it's also universal. And it's just in the text. If you've got your Bibles, put your noses down. Verse in chapter 20, verse 18. And you can see that it is personal. Listen to the words that Jesus says first. Did you hear those words? Jesus said, Woman, why are you weeping? Right? Then he says, whom are you seeking? Jesus, what's he doing playing coy like that? Come on! Amongst all this busyness, Jesus keeps surprising and popping up right near us, closer than we could ever imagine. And she missed him twice. The text says she had to turn both times to see him. You ever feel like that? And he asks her a question, a probing question that says, Woman, why are you weeping? The second one, though, whom are you seeking? I sat with that question. I sit with that question. What am I seeking? What do I want? What am I seeking? What am I ordering my life around or toward in such a way that it would be seeking? Bigger car, bigger house, bigger wallet, better looking something, better kids, better, I don't know, better to help me fill in the blank. Better, right? Something? Who or what, it could be translated what, are you seeking? It's a question I've been sitting with, right? Amongst the speed, amongst the busy, what is my life ordering around? Because it's ordered around something. There's something that I'm seeking. Something. But she doesn't recognize him with those words. Jesus says that question, I think, so she'll understand where she is. But he does reveal himself. How does he reveal himself? In her name. In her name. I don't think, as I storytell that scripture, you have to decide, how did Jesus say Mary? I can't just read on a page. I am pretty sure he didn't say, Mary, you idiot, I'm right here the whole time. I'm pretty sure he didn't say that, right? Although sometimes we might superimpose that on God, right? I'm pretty sure he didn't do the aloofness. Mary, I'm not. Mary, you silly little girl, I'm here. You know, I don't know. I said the first sermon, I think I was thinking, whenever I have Jesus in my image, there's like some story I saw years ago where it was an English person that was really popular, and they go forth and do likewise. And I just can't take that seriously, right? I don't know. Sorry for any friends I have that are from England or Scotland. But anyways, it was just weird. So anyways, I don't see it seems to kind of have aloofness to it sometimes. That is not Jesus at all. I think he says, Mary. I think he's bursting with something. And somebody told me earlier, they heard my sermon, they said, when you said, Jesus is bursting with something, she goes, I was going to say Skittles. And I'm like, what is that all about? But anyways, but Skittles, but what she was trying to say was she was trying to see vivid colors with what was bursting inside God. What I think the heart of Jesus is trying to communicate, which is the heart of God to you and to me, as he says Mary, or says Terry, or says Mark, says Cameron. He looks us in the eyes and he says this to us in personal encounter right now. He's trying to say, I love you. I know you. I'm coming to you. Right? I'm coming so you may know. That's what he's doing. It really is. That's what this account is about. Jesus coming near and making himself known. Really known. Fully known. That the scriptures always pointed to, but they're just finally getting it. Right? It's personal. It's individually personal. And it's personal not only to Mary, but to every single person that has ever lived. Because that death in life affects all people. See, I said it was personal, but it's also universal. It's universal. And the application isn't just to Mary, although it was to Mary. It was to every person that is to hear this story. If he was just some nice peasant that died 2,000 years ago, right? That's a nice story. It's pretty sacrificial, but it means very little. But if he is, as he claimed, and the Bible claims, that he is God with skin on that has come near to communicate the love of God to us, that changes everything. It changes everything. So therefore, that story is the big story, and we find our story within that story. It's universal. It's universal in its application. It meets us. Us, where we are. I remember in the passage as I look, it says that, but go tell my brothers and sisters that I ascend to my Father and to your Father, my God, and to your God. See, in his words that he's saying, he's communicating to us this huge truth that now our relationship with our Father and God is now open, is now made possible. My God and your God. My Father and your Father. See, what's happened is, all of humanity, for the most part, has basically said, I'm going to run life myself, right? Big and small, we've all done it. And we stand in that place. Sorry, Barry. And so we stand in that place where we've really kind of ordered our lives around something else. I've kind of done my own thing. We've all done that. I've done that. And so what happens is there's this barrier between God and myself. There's a reconciliation that needs to be taking place. There's something that got stuffed in between there, and I can't figure it out. I can't fix it. I can't do anything about it. It's just there. And I know I've really offended God and done things horrible to God, and I can't fix it. But God has and will. And He's done that in Jesus. That's what this story is about. When He says that I am going to my Father and your Father, my God and your God, it is a new opened way between the relationship of reconciliation between the way God had created us to be in relationship with Him. This story is the beginning of the end. For us to understand, wrap our heads around what God has been up to since the creation of the world. Reconciling humanity to Himself. And the resurrection is a big deal around that. 1 Peter, the guy that was running kind of slow earlier, I think he's a little bit older than John probably in that time. I can just see John going, I'm smoking you, come on, baby, come on. No, he didn't probably do that, okay. He didn't do that. I doubt he did that actually. But anyways, but in that I can see him just smoking by, right? And Peter's like, oh, I gotta need oxygen, right? I need to run more. So he's trying to get this guy, Peter, that was in the tomb, that just burst in the tomb, defiled himself, right? That's why they didn't go in the tomb, because then they would be considered defiled then, right? Or you're unclean or whatever. That's why, but Peter didn't care. He just burst in there and had to figure out what was going on. That guy, he writes later in his life, in a letter of 1 Peter. 1 Peter chapter 1. And he speaks about what the resurrection means. And this is what he says. 1 Peter chapter 1. He says, in His great mercy, He has given us new birth into a living hope through the resurrection of Jesus Christ from the dead. New birth into a living hope. That's what this is about. It's universal and it's personal. I didn't finish the whole chapter, but if I were to finish the whole chapter, we would get to the very end of chapter 20. And John pauses for a moment and he says these words, if you want to go down to verse 30. Now Jesus did many other signs in the presence of the disciples which are not written in this book, but these are written so that you might believe that Jesus is the Christ, the Son of God, and that believing you may have life in His name. The whole purpose of John's writing was not even just for a real historical account of the person of Jesus, which is true, but it's so that as we hear the story, it has a transforming effect on us. The reality that God is communicating His love through the Scriptures to us is a real reality. And that by believing, by placing our faith in this Jesus, He's offering for the first time real life. Not just existence that we've got, but a real life of God. It's a specific word in John. Zoe. The life of God that pulsates within God and is given to us only and in through Jesus Christ. That's what He's talking about. And the way it is in believing that. It's a posture of believing. It's continuous, but it's a posture.